At the time signal, 11 o'clock, Ed Pettit in the news.
Good evening, everyone. Here is the late hour news. Ed Pettit reporting. The first family came to New York City tonight to spark several fundraising affairs. There were pickets near the Waldorf protesting the court-martial of a Negro soldier who refused to fight once he got to Vietnam. Mr. Johnson, speaking informally at the Americana, said he'll continue the campaign for greater civil rights. He said the U.S. is fighting in Vietnam not only for itself, but for a better life for the Vietnamese. He said this nation has the will, the creativity, and the stamina to solve its many problems. Mr. Johnson is due to head back to Washington about midnight tonight. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara says another 18,000 troops will soon see service in Vietnam. This will raise our strength there to 285,000. McNamara declined comments on reports that the American buildup will reach 400,000 by the end of this year. U.S. troops took the offensive 300 miles north of Saigon today against a stubborn force of North Vietnamese regulars who have lost more than 700 men in recent days. Here at home, the march begun last weekend by James Meredith ended for the night in the Mississippi town of Pope, about 149 miles still between the marchers and their goal of Jackson. During today's trek, march leaders got 53 Negroes to register as voters. This fact was used to answer state NAACP official Charles Evers, who criticized spending money on the march and the campouts when it might, he said, be spent more directly in getting Negroes to register. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. rejoined the marchers today. Two gunmen pulled a $250,000 jewel robbery in Washington during the day. As the pair were leaving, manager Edward Jackman of Livingston's fired 5 shots. The robbers answered with a single shot, and a 16-year-old boy was an accidental victim. Longtime stage and screen actor Wallace Ford died of a heart attack today at the age of 68. He last appeared in the film A Patch of Blue, which is currently showing. Doctors in Hollywood say Edward G. Robinson is still in serious condition after an auto accident and surgery, but continues to show improvement. Famous children of famous people fared rather badly today. 9-year-old Carolyn Kennedy had to go on crutches after cutting her foot on a piece of coral, the first mishap on Mama's Hawaiian vacation. And Mayor Lindsay's youngest, John Jr., partially wrecked his dad's new Pontiac station wagon. The wagon, driven by a bodyguard, got pushed into a car ahead of it. The sudden stop threw the youngster against the dashboard. Fortunately, he wound up with nothing more damaging than a bloody nose. On a more serious note, we learned tonight of the death of Al Nielsen, for many years a member of the WOR family, an engineer who worked with virtually all the talent on this station before his retirement a few short years ago. He died of a heart attack near his home in Florida City. In baseball, in the American League, the Yankees beat Detroit 6-3. Tonight in the 7th inning, Minnesota 4, Chicago 1. Final score, Cleveland 6, Washington 4, and a final score, Boston 8, Baltimore 2. Kansas City against California is being played on the West Coast. In the National League, Pittsburgh downed Atlanta 5-3, Los Angeles 4-2 over the Giants. The Mets took the first of 2 by beating Cincinnati 4-0. In the second game, in the 8th inning, it's Mets 2, Cincinnati 0. Final, St. Louis 2, Philadelphia 0. In the 5th inning, Chicago 5, Houston 0. Number 1, Narden's Bird won tonight's feature at Roosevelt Raceway. Daily double winners were number 5, Marcus Pick, and number 3, Fargo Hanover. Here now is the weather forecast for New York City and vicinity. Clear and cool tonight. Low 50 to 55 here in the city and the 40s in the suburbs. Tomorrow, sunny and mild, high 75 to 80. Fair and milder tomorrow night and again on Monday. Present Manhattan reading 59 degrees, humidity 62%, wind from the east at 8 miles an hour. The barometer reads 30.20 inches, it's rising, and the THI stands at 59. That's the late hour news. Ed Pettit reporting. Have a nice weekend. Now let's go back to Gene Shepard at the Village Limelight.
This is
Hey, come and get me! Yeah. All right, at ease. At ease. Ladies and gentlemen of the listening audience, I wish to apologize for this ill-mannered display, which hardly befits a civilized man in the 20th century. And I have a sneaking feeling that if anything else happens like that, I'm just going to throw it right back to the studio. And we're going to put on Mary Martin tapes. All right? Okay. All right, now, are you all ready to go along with this now? Are you ready to behave? Yeah, you begin to like it, don't you? Yeah. See how close it is to the surface, you crumb? Yeah. I could just see this guy on Wednesday walking around with a sign that says peace. All right, let's give it a big hand there. Come on. Oh, what a gallimaufry, I'll tell you. Oh, yeah, somebody here, it's a funny thing. I was in the Middle East. And you know, one thing that you can't get used to in the Middle East, if you come from the Middle West, which is where I come from, is the fact that camels just walk around. Yeah, they're not in a zoo or anything. They're walking around. And you just can't get used to that. It hits you like a shock all the time. And a camel walks around. He's got to walk like this. And his head goes around. Yeah, you ought to see a camel. He still keeps walking when he's standing still, see? Yeah, and his behind goes like this. And then they walk. And they come over to the side of the road. And they look at you. And you look at them, see? And then all of a sudden, when his head goes back, you better get going. Are you aware that a camel can spit with absolute accuracy for over 40 yards? And they can hit a moving target. Oh, yeah, you ought to see him chewing. He starts chewing real fast, see? And you start moving, and you just hear this kapatooey. And you get up between his shoulder blades. And I'll be doggone, they laugh, And you hear this, he moves away. Oh, I'll tell you, there's no animal in the world like a camel. And ever since I was a kid, I have been deadly afraid of camels. Yeah, because each one of us has a hang-up on a certain animal that we've had an experience with it. I'm not afraid of snakes, spiders, camels. Because when I was a kid, we had in the next block, now get this, talk about being a lucky kid. Yeah, fantastic luck. One day, we had this ancient house that was kind of back in the willow trees. Big vacant lot around it and weeds. They had a great big set of garages behind it. And it was empty for years. And it was called the Haunted House. You know the kind of house when the kids walk past, oh boy, that's a haunted house, see? Wow, see? And then every once in a while you get up the guts to break in the basement window. You and Schwartz and Flick and Bruner, we'd sneak around. And then we'd chicken out. And it said for rent on it, see? Somehow a vacant for rent haunted house. I kind of like the idea of renting a haunted house. Can't you see it in the Times? For rent, haunted house. See? 18 rooms and 7 dungeons. Here's our haunted house, see, and this thing went along like that for years. And you get there's always a house in the neighborhood, if you live really in the country, that eventually you don't even pay any attention to. And the weeds grow up. And one day, about 45, it was in the summertime, see, about 45 fantastic big trucks pull up. And they're all lined up. Somebody is moving into the haunted house. And all the kids are out, me and Flick and Bruner. And my mother, you see, she had this bit that whenever somebody moved into the house in the next block or across the street, she's peeking through the windows, through the curtains, see. to see what kind of furniture they got. You know, and you could see all these curtains all around the block. Mrs. Bruner peeking. You could see Mrs. Stryker across the street peeking, you know. And everybody's waiting. See, they're lamping this new neighbor. Here are trucks. There must have been 45 of them pulling up. And what do they say on the side? Thurston, the magician. Thurston, the magician, is moving into the neighborhood. I mean, that's like a kid living in a house, you know, and all of a sudden a big truck pulls up next door with 17,000 signs all over the side, and it says, Ed Sullivan is moving in. You know, or Soupy Sales is moving in here, see? I mean, we couldn't believe it because Thurston the magician, this was a famous magician, and he was kind of mythical. And now he's moving in the next house down there in the empty vacant lot, see? And all the kids are watching this thing. And they're carrying great big trunks full of stuff in. Big trunks, one after the other, hour after hour. And they're filled, I'll tell you, you couldn't believe it. They're filled with things like hi-hats. They're filled with rubber eggs. Disappearing, can you imagine a neighbor that has 452 disappearing rabbits? Oh, it's fantastic, see? And they're pulling all this stuff in, and then a final big truck arrived. Now, wait a minute. Let me tell you what happened. This truck arrived. A great big, long, semi-tractor trailer pulled up. The last day. They've been putting stuff in there for 3 days now. Down came the tailgate. 3 guys got in the back, and they come out leading a camel. I'm telling you, you ought to see what a camel looks like in Hessville, Indiana. I mean, this great big camel comes out. See? He comes out like this, you know. He stands there with the head going. Yeah, they work like that, see. They move back and forth, and me and Schwartz and Flick and Bruner are standing there, see. Our idea of a really big animal was this dog named Spot. We had this dog named Spot that had these chromium teeth, see? He lived about 2 blocks away, and he was our idea of a really big animal. Here's this fantastic animal. He's just looking at us. And he's got these 2 little red beady eyes. And the instant he arrived in the neighborhood, he spotted the enemy. Me and Schwartz and Flick and Bruner, see? We're standing there, and he's looking at us. And we didn't know this yet, you know, at that time. We're just sort of standing looking because we didn't know anything about, you know, animals yet. And he's looking, and he's going. And Flick says, hey, he's chewing. And Schwartz says, yeah, he is. Oh, hey, mister, what's he chewing? And here's this guy holding this thing, you know, it's a little halter. And the guy looks at him and says, you'll find out. And Schwartz says, yeah? And just then the camel goes, yeah! Yeah, the camel's looking, and he goes, whoo. He sort of leans back like that, and his neck went forward like a snake. So he goes, patooey. I'll tell you, he got all 4 of us at once. Just boom, we duck back. And with that, the guy leads him away, see, and he goes up the driveway. Now, all of you are used to seeing Oldsmobiles go up driveways. You know, Oldsmobiles and Chevys. You ought to see how a camel looks going up a driveway. He's going, you know, just that plunk, plunk, plunk. You know, oh my, you know, wow, it's fantastic. And we're chasing after him, and the guy says, watch out, this is a camel. At that time, I did not know the significance of the remark. Well, all right, they put him in the garage. Now, they fixed the garage so that they had a split door, you know, like they do with stables, so that he could stick his head out. And so every day while we're playing ball, out there on the other side of the lot, the camel's watching. He'd just lean back and forth, see, he'd watch those high pop-ups. Oh, yeah, camels are very intelligent, see. They watch ball games and everything. After all, it's very dull being a camel. Have you ever thought of how little future there is in being a horse? There's just nowhere to go when you're a horse or a camel, see. You're just watching like that. Well, we took to doing this. Every day we'd come home from school, see. You know how it is when you're a kid?
WBAI New York. We're listening to Gene Shepard live at the Limelight from June 11th, 1966. Let's get back to it.
Watch it like that. Well, we took to doing this. Every day we'd come home from school, see. You know how it is when you're a kid? Everybody has his own little route that he takes home from school. You know, some guys go down the middle of the street. Yeah, there are certain kids who walk right down the middle of the street on the way. And then there's the conformist kid, you know, that walks down the sidewalk, see? And then there's the rest of us, the skulking kids, you know, under porches, you know, over back fences, you know. We're climbing through guys' basements and that, working our way home, see? And I was one of those kids, always down through the back alleys. Oh, there's a fantastic education available just by keeping your eyes open in alleys. Just keep your eyes on the ground. See, oh, wow, look at that. Hey, Lord, look at that, Schwartz. Oh, you know, you just keep going, you know. Well, we finally, you know, we got this whole thing where we knew these various animals. He had a whole menagerie. I remember one thing that he had, I'll never forget, is in the garage next to the Camel, there was a tank, great big tank. And I used to crawl up to the back of the garage and look in, just peek into the gloom. It was an old garage that had been converted. And in the tank was something you just wouldn't believe. I'm serious. I'll never forget the sight of that. Floating in this dirty water with cigar butts and beer cans with these two eyes just floating, looking up at you. It would float like that, see? And I would bang on the glass, bang, bang, you know, and it would sort of blink. And once in a while it would go, I'd say, bang, bang, hey, let's hear it again. It would float up and down. It was a sea cow. Can you imagine having a neighbor who's got a... Don't ask me what Thurston did with a sea cow. Yeah, he had a sea cow in his garage. Now, I've known many guys who drove sea cows, but they called them their family car. But this was a real sea cow, floating, see. And I remember after we found out it was a sea cow, I came home and I said to my mother, hey, Ma. And she says, yeah. I said, you know what's in the garage? And she'd say, what? I said, a sea cow. And she turns and she says, will you stop lying? I said, no, Ma, there's a sea cow in the garage over there. And 5 minutes later, I'm in the John, and I've got a bar of Palmolive in my mouth. Oh, yeah, you know, some nights when I wake up, it's terrible, you know what that'll do. How many of you have had a bar of soap stuffed in your mouth when you lied? Right, hey? You watch him carefully. He's been blowing bubbles all night. I wonder, you know, seriously, sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up. It's terrible. I'll wake up at 3 in the morning, see, and I said, there's a funny taste. And I'm tasting Lifebuoy. It still remains, see. Well, all right, we had the sea cow, but the Camel every day. Now, I used to take my lunch to school. Now, you know, there's a whole mystique about taking lunch to school when you're a kid. For one thing, the rich kids eat in the cafeteria. And you're always a little bugged because you got this bag, see. You bring this bag, and your mother has gotten the idea somewhere along the line that what you like is cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Yeah, there's a mystique or a myth among mothers that all kids like this junk, you know. You know, and so, you know, I take this doggone bag every day, and what I would do every day also, I was given lunch, I was given money to take the bus. And instead, me and Schwartz and Flick and Bruner would take our money, see, we'd wait for the bus, and the instant the bus would go by, you got this? To this day, my mother doesn't know I did this. So don't let her know, you know. So the bus would go by, and Schwartz and Flick and Bruner and myself would start hitchhiking. We're going to save the dime, see? And so we would get to school 2 hours late. You know, and we'd arrive, but we got the dime. So every lunch hour, this is what would happen. Schwartz and Flickenbrunner and I would head for the Red Rooster, which was the local ice cream joint, you know, the high school hangout. We'd go down and I'd buy myself this gigantic triple split ice cream cone. I remember one of my special favorites was pineapple, strawberry, and chocolate. Ugh. How I liked that, I don't know. But I would start at the top, see, all the way around, and I'd finish this monster that weighed 4 pounds, and I still got the bag of sandwiches. You got that, see? Well, you only got a certain amount of capacity. Now, my mother would put in 2 sandwiches every day, see, and 1 Twinkie. That was for me being a good boy, see? How many of you have ever gone on a kick like that? Oh, boy, I'll tell you, I went on a Twinkie kick one time that didn't stop. You know what Twinkies are, these little things with the goo stuff in them, you know? I used to take the Twinkie and I'd squeeze it. And, you know, I had all kinds of tricky ways of eating Twinkies. You know? All right, so I'd eat the ice cream cone, I'd eat the Twinkie, and now I got 2 sandwiches. Well, now, you know, kids are funny about their mothers. You know, they have a peculiar sense of, I guess the word is conscience and fear that any day now they're going to die. You know that feeling when you're a little kid that your mother's not going to, she's going to die, see? And so somehow that's associated with the sandwiches. And that you shouldn't really throw it away because your mother made it. You just can't see yourself throwing the sandwiches away, see? So I used to take my sandwiches and I would put them, I had this little leatherette bag with my books, and I would hide them in that bag every day, and I'd bring them home. Well, you know, after a while, you get to accumulating sandwiches. Oh, yeah, I used to come in, see, and I just couldn't get myself, 1, I couldn't eat them because I hated them, and 2, I couldn't throw them away. So I would come in every day, and I would sit in the kitchen. My mother would say, all right, what do you want now? Do you want cocoa malt? Do you want milk? Or do you want graham crackers or what? You know, you have this little bit after dinner, always after school. You have something to eat? Well, I would have my milk, see? And she would go out, and instantly I would take, now listen to this, I would take my sandwiches out and throw them behind the refrigerator. Because the refrigerator, you know, never moved, you know, it was always there. And it had this little crack behind it, you know. And I would throw them behind the refrigerator, see? Then I would sit down, I'd drink my milk. Well, this must have gone on for a year and a half. Yeah, I'm telling you. And one day I came home from school, you know, and you get so that crime, you know, is habit forming. Yeah, you get so you do it automatically. You don't think of it, see? So every day, the sandwiches go back of the thing, see? Because it was all connected with the dime. It was connected with hitchhiking, with cheating on the money, being late to school all the time because I hitchhiked. Oh, it was a whole complex, you see. So every day I'd throw the sandwiches back there. Well, one afternoon, I came home from school. I opened the back door, you know, I walk in. The refrigerator's gone! It's gone! There's nothing but this big dirty place on the wall, you know, with a couple of pipes coming on. I look around, oh, what happened? The refrigerator's gone. My sandwiches. Who discovered my sandwiches? Oh, my God, I'm sunk. No, it's out. Oh, yeah. And I could see, you know, in my mind's eye secretly, like when you're doing really something rotten, you know it's rotten. And always in my mind, I always had this little image of these petrified sandwiches. A pyramid of crime piling up like this, see. And I come home and it's gone. This icebox, the refrigerator's gone. And there's nobody in the house. I say, Ma! Ma, hey! And she's not home. I walk around, see. And I've got my little leatherette bag, you know, with 2 sandwiches. You know, it's terrible, see. I walk around and there's only one thing I could think of doing, see. I open it up and I start eating them. I figure I'm going to make up for all the rottenness, you know. I eat the sandwiches, you know, I stuck them. You know, I've had Milky Way bars and all this all day long. Now I'm eating the 2 sandwiches. And by now they're kind of bent over in the middle. And they're flat from in my pocket. I eat the sandwiches. Oh. And I go out, and I'm playing ball, but there's this worry, see. And so I played a ball game, and I come home, and here's my mother by the sink. I walk in. She's there, see. And she doesn't say anything. I walk through this. Hi, Mom. Gee, I sure wish I had a cream cheese and jelly sandwich. Wow. Oh, my, wow. How about a cream cheese sandwich? Look at her, she's working away there. I go in the bedroom and I put my glove away, and I take off my tennis shoes. And I go in and voluntarily wash my face. I'm trying to clear up all the rottenness of the past, So I go in, I wash my face, see? I come back out, I'm walking around. I said, the icebox, the refrigerator's gone, Ma. She says, yes. What happened to it? She says, it made a noise. Started to smoke. Why? They're fixing it. I said, then I begin to have an image. What happened? Did that machine start sucking up my sandwiches? Was there a bonfire of old sandwiches behind it, What is this, see? And I'm walking back and forth, this terrible nervousness. Oh, when you have committed a crime and the evidence is beginning to unfold, that is the worst moment. Oh, it's terrible, see? And so, I've always understood. I remember a line by Sherlock Holmes. You can laugh at Holmes, but there was one line where Holmes said to Watson, Watson said, oh, by George, amazing, my dear Holmes. And Holmes said, well, there was nothing to it, Watson. Don't you realize, Watson, that a criminal always has an innate desire to confess? But as a matter of fact, many criminals cause their crime to come about for the purpose of confessing. And Holmes said, my God, I can't understand that, Holmes. He says, elementary, my dear Watson. Well, now I know about that, see? At that time, that's meaningless. And here I'm walking around in the kitchen saying, cream cheese and jelly sandwiches, Ma. Hi, George. And she turns to me and she says, what's the matter with you? I said, nothing. And she says, well, what's bothering you? I said, Ma, were you here when they took the refrigerator out? And she says, yes. I said, well, there was that instantaneous hope that maybe the mice had eaten all the sandwiches. Oh, listen, we had a parade of mice in our house that didn't stop. In fact, it got so we knew them, My old man would say, there goes Fred. Hi, Fred. Yeah, we had names for him and all. He said, there goes Popeye. There was one that had a big eye, So, there was that instantaneous hope. I thought to myself, oh, gee, maybe the mice ate the sandwiches. And she turns to me and she says, what's bothering you? I said, well, Mom, did the refrigerator man find anything behind? I lost a golf ball behind it. Did the refrigerator... And she says, well, she said, I want you to remember one thing. I said, what? She says, we've all got our sandwiches that we throw behind the refrigerator. I said, what? I thought she'd flipped her wig. I said, well, you know, Ma, I brought him home and I didn't know what to do with him. You see, some people are influenced by Hamlet. I was influenced by Stanley Laurel. He was the biggest. She says, well, don't worry about it. All I want to know is what you have been eating. And, you know, for years, she'd been wondering why I had these pimples all over, you know. I said, well, every day I have an ice cream cone and a Milky Way bar. She says, well... And she turned. She said, I just wish you had told me. I said, well, Ma, how can I tell you? And then I felt even worse, see. And from that time on, I ate 5 cream cheese and jelly sandwiches every day. Do you know, as penitence to this day, when I walk into the Four Seasons, when the man says, what do you have? I said, cream cheese and jelly, please. All right, give those sandwiches a big hand. Let's hear it. Speaking of cream cheese, what radio station is this, gang? Let's hear it. Hit it. And where are we? Oh, speaking of cream cheese. Well, all right, see, every day now you want to get the rest of the story about the Camel. Thought I forgot, huh? Oh, no, that's part of the scene, see. Every day I would have these 2 sandwiches. You got the scene? And I would come home, and I would have them in my little leatherette bag. And every day I would walk down the alleyway, and I would go past this Camel. He's looking at me, see. He just looks, see, his head like a big snake would follow me, see. And I got to know him. And so I used to first walk down the other side of the alley, see. Oh, away from him, saying, hi, Camel. You're nothing but a camel, Camel. Yeah, a rotten camel. I'm a people, Camel. You're jealous. You know, that kind of stuff. And then I started to walk down the middle of right down the middle of the alley, see? And I would toss him sticks. You know, little things. I'd throw him an apple core, see? And you ought to see a camel catch. I'll tell you, if you think Joe Pepitone, boy, do they go down in the dirt, you know? Camel just goes, ooh. And then he backs up, see, and his eyes are budging. He goes, he's waiting for something else, see? Well, that Camel got to know me. And so every day I'm getting closer to him. And finally, one day, I'm walking right up next to the garage door, and the Camel's head comes out, sticking way out to the end of his neck, see? He's looking. He's chewing. I reach into my leatherette bag, and I pull out 1 cream cheese and jelly sandwich. And I go, and he goes, blah. And there was a brief moment, you know, we paused. And then every day that Camel gets a cream cheese and jelly sandwich. You know. I mean, bagels and lox, yeah. Cream cheese and jelly, no. And he sort of backs up. He pauses, and then he goes. That's better than that hay, you know. He goes, and this time, for the first time, instead of spitting at me, he goes, and looks back. We are now friends. You know, and I walk past, you know, say, hi, Camel. The next day, I come creeping up. Now I've already got my cream cheese and jelly sandwich out. And he sees me coming all the way down the block. See, he's looking out. His eyes are shining, you know, like twin jewels. I walk past, I throw him the jelly sandwich. Well, all right now, we have got ourselves a real rapport. Every day I am giving him a cream cheese and jelly sandwich. And we're getting very friendly. Well, one terrible day, we had a party in school. You know, one of those parties where Miss Shields brings the cake and Miss Robinette brings the baked beans. You know, it's one of those school parties. You sit around and eat ice cream and all that jazz, you know, that kind of stuff. And it was a no-lunch day. You got the bit? And I am now coming up to the camel and say, "Hi, camel. I got no sandwich, see?" And the camel looks out. You see, he's really hooked on him now, you know? If you've ever seen a camel with a cream cheese and jelly monkey on his back, you know, he's looking, see? And I say, "Hi, camel, ha, 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 ha," you know. Well, I turn around, and I am wearing my brand new sheepskin coat. Now, I want to tell you, you know, these sheepskin coats, you know, the kind, the leatherette kind with the helmet, the goggles, with the sheepskin collar. I had just gotten it. My mother got it at Sears Roebuck. Listen to that Sears Roebuck girdle creak. And I had the Sears Roebuck, you know, and every year when a kid in the Midwest got his new coat, that was a major moment in his life. It was supposed to last 2 years and then was passed on to the next brother. There are coats out there that go back to the Boer War. Yeah, you know, and every year, and I had my new coat, see, and it's got sheepskin lining, see, and I'm walking down, I got the corduroy pants. Boy, I'll tell you, corduroy pants. You know, one of the things that I always remember from school is the sound of a kid breaking in a new set of corduroy pants. Have you ever heard a kid walk up to the board with his corduroy pants and they're going, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, ooh"? And you could tell the good pants because they were in the key of B flat. You know. He's a B flat pants man, you know. Oh yeah, you know, and another thing about corduroy pants is corduroy pants, like all good things, ripen. And after a kid has worn a set of corduroys for 2 seasons, it's like a compost heap. You know, you can see twigs growing out of it, you know. And I've got my corduroy pants on, I got my coat and everything, see, and I say, "Hi, camel." You know, I turn around and all of a sudden there's an instant. You know how you sense danger? Something's wrong. And then I hear this, boom! I hear the teeth go clank. These 2 gigantic set of dentures. You ought to see teeth that Camel got, I'll tell you. I hear this clunk, I move, and I'm stuck. This camel has got the back of my coat. He's got a hold of it, and I'll tell you, this is a big camel. He's got a head like, you know, like that. And I see these 2 eyes, and I turn around, and the camel's got my coat like that, see? I move twice, and he bites. And that's it. There's nothing but a big bite right out of my coat. I'll tell you, you know that awful moment. Don't leave it alone, Carney. You know that awful moment when you have torn something badly? That terrible moment when you've torn something as a kid? Don't mess with it, Carney. Leave it alone, man. You know that terrible moment when you've torn a new pair of pants or something? Well, here is my new coat. Now, that coat is supposed to go to my kid brother. This is an heirloom. Already it's got a chunk the size of a watermelon on it. And you know, I panic. I run into Bruner's garage, see, and I try to put a piece of wire to hook it together, see. Big bite out of it, see. Oh, frantic. Oh, my coat. What am I going to do? My coat. That damn camel. Boy, you give a camel a cream cheese and jelly sandwich and he wants the mile and give him a world. And then I am now in the kitchen, see. And the instant I'm in the kitchen, I try to walk in sideways. My mother takes one look and she says, let me see your coat. I turn around, there it is, see. She says, all right now, how did you rip your coat? How did you rip your coat? A camel bit it. A camel. She stood up, you know, that thing when your mother pulls her gut in. She said, I told you if you ever lied to me again. Now, how did you rip that coat? A camel bit it. She says, now I will count to 3, And if at the end of 3 you don't tell me how you ripped that coat, you are going to get something you will never forget. Little did I realize that I was in the midst of one of those great educational moments in life. I was learning that people don't really want truth. You know, I'm standing... You know, for the first time in my life, I've been on the level. And now there I am. I'm standing there on the linoleum, you know. The sink is going... I said, a camel bit it. No. She says, all right, okay, tell me the truth. Flick tore it. Flick tore it. She says, now why didn't you tell me that in the first place? She says, I'm not mad. See how easy that was? I said, yeah, Ma. Yeah. And she says, now, you just sit down and I'll call Flick's mother. And, you know, it's worse and worse. And 10 seconds later, she's on the phone. She says, hello, Mrs. Flickinger. She says, you know that I don't often say things about what the kids do. But, Ma, please, Ma, don't say. She says, don't worry. She says, Mrs. Flickinger will understand. Don't worry. She says, Jack tore Gene's coat. His new sheepskin, yes. All right, I'll wait. And I hear coming out of the phone, I hear this voice, don't you lie to me! And I could see Flick, you know. I could see Flick in the kitchen. And there's this long pause, and then I hear this voice get on the phone, you know, and I hear her say, he just said he did it, yes. And my mother says, well, I wanted to just see if Jeannie was lying, yes. Yes. I'm standing in the corner, you know, over there. She says, okay, no, don't do anything. It's all right. It's just his new coat. Yes, it's just the only one he's had for 19 years, yeah. Yes, we were expecting it to last into the 21st century. Yes, it's all right, though. No, it's okay. Okay, all right. All right, just don't be too tough on him. Yeah, okay. She hangs up the phone. She comes back and says, now, you see, there was nothing to it. Yes, Ma. Nothing to it. Nothing to it. And that night, oh, yeah, listen. Being a criminal is bad enough. But getting away with it is worse. Oh, I'll tell you, that night I'm lying in a sack, you know, and I'm tossing. And, you know, the coat, that rotten coat, is hanging in the closet. I'm tossing. You know, I could see Flick. I could see the next day. It's recess. I could see Flick, you know, advancing through this crowd. See? Well, all right. The next day dawns bright and early. You know that terrible feeling that boys, I think, know this far more than girls. It's the creeping retribution. It's the sense of going to get beaten up today. You know, that feeling, either that or you're going to have to fight to the last minute, you know. So all the way through, I'm dragging breakfast, you know, and my mother's saying, what's the matter? Aren't you feeling well? Yeah. I am now in school. Flick is up near the front, see? And all the kids in my room are alphabetically arranged. I wonder how many kids never made it because they were in the S's. And the Y's and the Z's, you know. That crowd, there's never been a president whose name started with Y. Or Z or W, you know. And you sit way in the back, you're a little kid. I remember this crowd, this great horde. And almost all the kids, by the way, couldn't see the board in the back. all we'd see is this forest of waving hands. Incidentally, I wonder how many smart guys in this crowd are automatic hand wavers. Did you ever have that terrible sense of hate for the kid in your room? There's always this smart kid that's always going like this, me, you know, like this, hey, me, and you're sitting back there, you know, not me, don't call me, you know. You're sitting there, you faked it all of your life, you know, and you've made it all the way up to the 6th grade and haven't answered a question yet. You know, not me, and you've got camouflage going, your eyeballs are spinning, you know. You're sitting there. Well, all right, that day, it is now recess time, see, and I'm scared, you know, oh boy, Flick. And sure enough, here's this crowd, and I'm way over here with a bunch of kids. Now, here's a bunch of kids over here, and it's a big mob, and I see Flick in the crowd, see? And he's looking around. He's looking around, see? And I'm standing over here. Well, you know, you can't chicken out. You know, I had a reputation. You know, I gave as much as I got. You know, I wasn't, oh, yeah, I'm wiry, I'll tell you, see? And so I'm standing over there. I said, well, all right. Okay, if Flick wants to have it out, all right. We'll have it out, see? Okay. So I'm standing over there by Schwartz, you know, I'm pretending I'm talking. And all of a sudden, Flick walks up. He says, hey, Shepard. Shepard! I turn, I say, yeah? And there's this moment of silence. It's a walk down. He looks me in the eye and he says, why did you have to tell her? I said, tell her what? He says, why did you have to tell her I tore your coat? And I says, well, you did. He says, well, why did you have to tell her? And now I believe he did, see? I says, because you tore it, and I'm not going to take blame for something you did. And he says, all right, and we had the bloodiest fight you ever saw. Fist fighting it out, yelling and hollering until finally Miss Shields pulls us apart. And she says, all right, apologize. I says, well, he did it. And he says, it was my fault, Miss Shields. I said, you're damn right it was your fault. You tore my coat. My new coat. And Miss Shields says, did you tear his coat? He says, yeah. Well, do you know, to this day, there is that myth in my family? That even to this day, my mother thinks one of the funniest things I ever told her is the time when I was a kid and I thought up this fantastic lie about the camel biting my coat. And so even to this day, I'll call my mother, see, and this is our little family joke. You know, every family's got one. I call her on the phone, see, and I say, hey, Mom, how are you? She's back in Hammond, Indiana. She said, oh, hello, Gene, how are you? I said, okay, Ma, how are you? She says, any camels bite your coats lately? And every time I say, but Ma, a camel really did bite my coat. And she says, oh, you always were such a funny kid. I said, but Ma, a camel bit my coat. And so we've carried this on for years, and to this day, see, she believes that a camel bit my coat. And I learned something very strongly that time about truth. I learned something about camels, too. And I'll never forget, do you want to hear what happened to the sea cow? Yeah. All right, see, he was part of the camel world. And every day when the camel is out to lunch, or the camel was working, the camel would disappear for weeks on end. I guess he was working in the act. Or something, he'd go, see. That me and Flick and Bruner would go around the back of the house, and there was this little dirty window. You know how they have little dirty windows in the garages? And you can see a couple of paint cans, you know, and with the paint brushes sticking out. And we would tap on the window. We'd tap on it. And we'd see this great big pool in there. Just heaving. Got a pool that just sort of heaving like that. And we tap on the window again, you know, this little short, like, you know, like that. It got him, you see. It was something in the sound. We go, and all of a sudden you'd see this, you'd see the water part in the beer cans. Yeah, and you'd see the cigar butts, and you'd see the orange peelings come down off of his head, and he would look. Boy, there is nothing sadder than the eyes of a sea cow. It's eerie, especially when you see it in a garage in Indiana. I don't know where it is that sea cows live, what kind of land. I understand they live near icebergs, and they live down in Southern California. But wherever that sea cow lived, it was nothing like this garage. And so the sea cow would look. You'd see these two eyes. It would look, and we'd knock again, you know, like this. And the sea cow would spit little water. It would go, and once in a while it would go, moo. And you know, they really do look like humans. Are you aware that the sea cow is the basis of the mermaid legends? I'm sorry, that's true. It is. That the sea cow is the creature, or the manatee, if you prefer that, is the creature that in the early days was spotted by seamen, and the first time they saw it, it has such a human-like look that they thought it was a kind of human that lived in the sea. This is actually the basis of the legend of the mermaids. And I can understand it because the sea cow always looked like it was crying. It really did. Had big sad eyes. Would look out at us. And you had a vague sense that not only was it looking at you, but it somehow understood that you were there. It wasn't like other animals, you know, that flat animal look. The sea cow kind of understood. And so we'd knock. And it would float up and down. This went on for a whole year. And it was curious because the kids never talked about it. You know how there are certain things when you're a kid that you don't tell your parents? It's your thing. And we would go and look at the sea cow. And once in a while we'd throw apple cores in. And the sea cow would go, would disappear, see. And then it would float up again. And you see it's kind of chewing. It's eating an apple core. I'll bet I'm one of the very few guys who's ever fed a sea cow apple cores. It just floats up and down, see. And every day I would come in and I'd sit at home, you know, after I played with the sea cow for about an hour. And I'd come home and I'd sit there, see. And my mother would say, what did you do? Oh, I just played. We never told her about the sea cow, except that they had this funny thing, and that was all. One afternoon, an afternoon I will never forget, because it was one of those peculiarly traumatic things, the kind of things that you could never tell an analyst, and that you could never write in a short story because it doesn't have any real meaning. One afternoon, we're all out playing ball, and the sea cow we had not played with for about 2 weeks. We're out in front. We're knocking out fly balls, see? And a big truck pulls up. It pulls up right in front of the place, see? We're watching, kind of half watching. And these guys go up the driveway. About 7 of them. And all of a sudden, they come down the driveway, and they've got this great big, well, it looks like some kind of a great big plaster thing. And they're carrying it. The sea cow has died. They are carrying the sea cow out on a strange kind of stretcher. All the kids are watching. Have you ever seen a sea cow on a stretcher? I'll tell you, it's one of the sights you'll never forget. It just sort of lays there, you know. Yeah, our sea cow had kicked the bucket, you know. And they put it in the truck, and away they went. And here we are out playing ball. Bruner says, gee, that was the sea cow. Flick says, so what? Come on, let's get the ball game going. But we didn't play. We couldn't play. The sea cow had died. And somehow something had gone out of the neighborhood that was very important. And so later that night, I'm at home, see, and I got this I'm sitting there eating, and I'm worried about the sea cow. That's a weird thing, and I'm eating the red cabbage, and I'm sitting there. You know that feeling when you're sitting at home and there's something wrong? I'm eating, see. My old man turns to me. He always sat on the left. You know how the family has a regular satellite way of sitting? How do you establish this? I've often wondered how these little routines are established. When you were a kid, do you recall the exact way the family sat at the kitchen table when you ate? How it never changed. Your father sat at one place, your mother sat at another, and ours was like this. The old man to the left, always. My mother sat over there, I sat on the end, and my kid brother sat over here. Either that or he was under the table. It was one or the other, and this continual running, this kind of a family counterpoint all the time, like, now will you eat? Now quit playing with your food. My kid brother had a way of making pyramids. We would make pyramids, and then once in a while he would make big pinwheels. Have you ever seen a pinwheel made out of mashed potatoes and red cabbage? And then he would take the ketchup and put it on the top, see? And once in a while he'd make phallic symbols, not knowing it, see? And he's making this stuff. And that's the way we lived, see? And so we're sitting there eating, and my mother turns to me and says, "What's the matter? You're not eating, Jeannie." I said, I'm not very hungry. And she says, "Well, what's the matter? Is there something wrong with you? Aren't you feeling well?" Yeah. And the old man, he was very direct. He turns, he says, "Look, if something's eating you, tell us." It's okay. And immediately, there's that myth, that thing that happens in the house where the old man immediately assumes that something terrible's happened. He says, "All right, now what did you do?" I said, Nothing. What's the matter? Nothing happened." My mother says, "Well, you're not eating. What's up?" I says, "Well, the sea cow died." My mother says, "What? The what died?" And my old man says, "Now look, we're eating." And I said, "The sea cow died, Mom. Mr. Thurston's sea cow." She says, "Mr. Thurston's sea cow died?" And my kid brother starts to cry. Kid brothers are like animals. They sense trouble. And immediately I hear, he's whimpering, My mother says, "Shut up, will you?" And I says, "The sea cow died, Mom." And, that first instinct of my father was to laugh. That, "Oh, come on, a sea cow died." And to his everlasting credit, he understood that something peculiar had happened. And he says, "Well, that's all right. It'll be all right." I says, "No, the sea cow's dead."